Welcome back and thank you for joining me once again for part 2 of Claire and Leon's story. I want to apologize again for my hectic schedule. I feel like it's been too long since I've released a full video, but I'm working on them as I have time and the ability to. I like to consider myself a family man, dedicating my time and effort with my child and my fiance, and also I got a PS5 for Christmas, so that's pretty much taken up most of my time. We left off just before the second half of the game where we find Claire at a gas station on a payphone attempting to locate her brother because she doesn't have the time or energy to check every gym in a 40-mile radius and she couldn't bait him out with steroids attached to a string like she wanted. We skip forward after Claire and Leon escape the gas station being swarmed by Resident Evil fans looking for dirty photos of Jill Valentine being by Nemesis. We arrive back at the precinct looking a bit more worse for wear, and after speaking to Leon and realizing he's about as useful as any other American police officer, Claire decides to continue forward. Now looking over her current status, she seems to be in good health with a decent amount of weapons and ammo. But considering it says she's fine, I imagine she has to be upset about something, but figuring out what it is might be the true mystery of this episode. It might have something to do with where she's hiding these bolt cutters because at first glance, it ain't on her person. I know that joke may come off as misogynistic, but it's 1998 and the material is still completely acceptable, so I'm leaving it in. Making our way through the police department, we discover what appears to be a child's drawing of a secret entrance out of the precinct, and while working through the puzzles, we encounter several familiar faces such as Detective Nick Valentine on steroids, Lieutenant Dan trying to get his ice cream, that police officer from Leon's playthrough who, despite being undead and hungering for human flesh, still has a taste for vending machine junk food. Oh, and Marvin Branagh, who looks a bit more lively despite being a walking corpse. After breaking through some puzzles and making her way underground, Claire discovers a young girl that I can only imagine how she got there. I don't believe bring your child to work day is a thing when you work at a secret underground facility beneath Raccoon City, but I digress. After a short exchange between Claire and the little girl, the f*** did you just say to me? We are once again introduced to William Birkin trying to figure out why his vision is enhanced, but he can't see out of his shoulder eye. Claire defends herself against Sauron and his weird human counterpart, and after realizing he isn't wanted, William decides to exit stage left, in the form of a swan dive over a railing he was nowhere near and couldn't have possibly been accidental. Well, that was incredibly convenient. Claire assures the young girl that it's safe to come out in an underground tunnel that's swarming with the undead, broken steam pipes, a genetic-altering virus, unstable platforms, and a constant lingering sense of danger. Probably still safer than Roblox, though. The girl asks for help finding her mother, and Claire agrees as the pair continues forward. They make their way out of the underground tunnels and into a parking garage before being interrupted by Police Chief Brian Irons moonlighting as a Batman villain. He kidnaps the little girl, Sherry, at gunpoint and threatens Claire's life to convince Sherry to cooperate. Claire threatens to sick a living pair of biceps on him before Sherry and Brian exit the parking garage, Sherry dropping her locket on the way out. Claire eventually discovers a parking garage pass, conveniently locked behind 20 Hellraiser puzzles before giving up entirely. Oh, never mind, she made it inside. Before collecting the pass, the phone rings and Claire, wondering who the could be calling at this time, decides to answer. Excuse me, I have a meeting about an unpaid parking fine and the gate seems to be locked. I'm kidding, it's Brian. It seems sweet little Sherry dropped a locket as we were leaving. You wouldn't happen to have seen it by chance. If so, you have 20 minutes to meet me at Raccoon City Orphanage or I'll Now we change perspectives to find out what Sherry's been getting into for the last hour or so. It seems Brian has locked her in a small playroom, and either I or hindsight is complete garbage because that wall is literally held together with cardboard. Absolute f***ing legend. Sherry is now hands down my favorite character, watching her navigate darkened corridors, solve complex puzzles, and outwit Vernon Dursley's fatter, dumber cousin. Sherry is unfortunately captured for a brief moment, but quickly counters with formaldehyde in his eyes. Hats off to this brilliant little girl. That kitty d***. She quickly outmaneuvers less intimidating John Wayne Gacy as he stumbles around like it's a Dick Van Dyke opening. Once again, Sherry is captured, but William suddenly appears to show Brian what hole his mother should have received him through. Bit of a stretch, but we got there. The scene fades and we return to Claire prior to those events. She informs the caller that there is no Heather Mason at this location and to call back later before hanging up. Claire quickly makes her way to the orphanage, only stopping briefly at a Starbucks for their seasonal pumpkin spice latte. She enters to find Brian mumbling some bullshit, but we got no sympathy for him, so to hell with what he said. Although it may have something to do with Sigourney Weaver, considering that chest burster that we are all glad didn't happen off screen. Claire and Sherry reunite as they make a break for it, getting stopped short at an elevator by Mr. X cosplaying as a 1920s detective before suddenly a wild William appears. Oh wait, never mind, we already knew about him. William fists the out of Mr. X, which is less dirty than it sounds, I promise, ripping out a massive chunk of his torso, destroying his spinal cord, vital organs, and the continuity between my part 1 and part 2 of this game. The elevator drops and Claire wakes briefly to see Sherry pleading with her to wake up and then immediately throwing in the towel. She is then awoken once more by Dr. Annette Birkin, Sherry's mother. Annette informs Claire that Sherry is fine and not Claire's concern, but considering how one-sided this conversation is between Claire and Annette, I'm inclined to believe that Sherry is about as safe as Annette is as a good parent. Not willing to give up on Sherry, Claire continues her search for her, only to find her stuck in a literal pile of garbage, being chastised by her mother from a security camera for not wanting to be left alone in a house during a zombie outbreak. When she is rescued, Claire discovers that Sherry has been infected with the G virus off-screen by William Birkin. Bit unfortunate. And Annette, being incredibly helpful over the intercom, assures Claire that there is no saving her. Or there is, but it's really not that important, before wishing her daughter the best of luck and signing off. Claire carries Sherry to a medical lab to find the cure that Annette was so eager to write off before sharing a tender moment with Sherry on a subway car. A tram? I think it carries cargo, but who gives a shit? After endless waves of tedious puzzles and also this zombie that made me laugh for some reason, we are finally greeted with the antidote before being interrupted once again by William, the one true king of inconveniently timed moments. He's like an even Kool-Aid man. Annette enters the scene as well to douse William with some watery substance and continue to up my narrative before being picked up and thrown aside like her daughter has been for the past 10 years. After defeating William once again, Claire returns to Sherry after having been treated with the antidote by Annette. We all caught up? Everyone knows what's going on? Me neither. Let's wrap this up. Annette died from her injuries. No complaints here. They say their tearful goodbyes before racing a countdown timer to the lab detonation and slapping William around another time for good measure. Claire stops to catch up with Leon for a minute before successfully escaping with Sherry and rendezvousing with the bastard later. Look at that stupid smile on Claire's face. They all escape. Oh, never mind. William wanted to get down once again, so let's get that out of the way. Okay, now they've escaped and live happily ever after. For a girl who lost her home and family in one fell swoop, was kidnapped, infected with a deadly virus, and repeatedly assaulted by the undead, she doesn't seem too fazed by it. Alrighty. That's all for Resident Evil 2, finally covered. Once again, if you're watching this on TikTok, the full video is on my YouTube channel, so please head over there to watch the full video. Links are on my profile. And subscribe while you're at it. It really will help me grow, literally and figuratively. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time for Resident Evil 3.